tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
We're going to be giving away some fantastic prizes to one lucky winner. Actually, there's more than one, but we're surprising one right now. She's actually in the customer care room thinking that she's sorting out a bill for her daughter, but she's in for a bigger surprise. Let's see what happens.
Surprise! Your daughter nominated you as her real-life superhero, and you won! So we have our superhero bundle for you for a year, a brand new TV, and a brand new phone with some accessories.
Congratulations. So this is your brand new Samsung crystal clear 55-inch TV. And we also hooked you up with some Samsung gear, free phone, got your headset. We're also going to give you free internet and TV for a whole entire year, okay?
My mother, she has dedicated her life to ensuring I had a great childhood and upbringing. She worked approximately 26 years at a Marriott hotel and provided for my siblings and I. Through all the things that I threw at her, she never once made us feel like she wouldn't handle it or couldn't make a way. The definition of a super mom and a strong black woman. She is the cornerstone of our family and a great example of a mother and an incredible grandmother.
Yeah, Mom, make some noise for Mom!
Thank you very much.
Oh, man.
I appreciate it.
So we're gonna surprise this customer. We'll see what happens here and how surprised she is. Her daughter is like already started to cry. So this is already amazing. Let's see what happens next. Surprise!
You got a Here's your new phone and some goodies. Your balloons and your brand new TV.
It's all yours.
It's all yours. Mommy. Yeah. Put this on your head.
I would love to say that my superhero is my mom, Marilda Cayasso Miller. She has been my rock, and when I felt like giving up on myself, she is always there to push me out of the slum and tell me that I am enough. She believes in my dreams and my talents even more than myself, and when everyone turns their back on me, she's there with open arms. Even if she doesn't get this, I still want the world to know that my mom is the best in the world, and I love her further than the moon and back. She's a strong Black woman. Even through her difficulties, she's always helping the community, her church, the family, and her friends. Me having to share her is amazing, and I'm proud to call her my mother. A phenomenal Black woman you are, Mom, and I pray that God lengthens your life, that I can give just as much as you have given me, and even more, because you're deserving of it all. So Mommy, you're my superhero. I love you so much. Oh, sorry. Love you too. You deserve it all. Oh gosh. You are so deserving. Wow. You deserve so much, and I just want to say thank you. And you are the best mother that I could ever have. The best in the world.
Yeah, Mom.
Oh, come on. Love you, Mommy.
Good morning, Cayman. Thank you guys so much for waking up with the cold, hard truth this morning. How are you guys? Wow, we got a lot to talk about, a lot of ground to cover. It was a good weekend by and large, but guess what? Look out your window, folks. That is all because of a thunderstorm named Laura. So let's talk about Tropical Storm Laura. Good morning to Joy, who's joining us from Texas. We have Morna, who is enjoying the rainy weather. And I love rain too. Like, listen, if I didn't have to go anywhere today, which unfortunately I do, I would be like hot chocolate, tea, kicking up your feet, enjoying some Netflix movies or something. Because this is the perfect weather to just stay inside all day long. However, we don't quite get to be that fortunate all the time in terms of our schedule. So some of us have got to go out in this weather, and we do have a couple of notifications for people in the Brac. So if you're tuned in from the Brac, make sure that you stay tuned so that we can bring you all of those bits of details. So yeah, Tropical Storm Laura, a bit of interesting situation that's going on. There's Tropical Storm Laura, and then there's another storm out there that could potentially converge at some point into a single storm. And believe it or not, this would actually be the first time this has ever happened in the history of storms as they go. And so everybody is just like, 2020 is like the most interesting year ever. And it is seriously one for the record books. It's kind of how we're feeling, right? Between COVID, now California's on fire. I mean, there is just so much going on around the world. So, of course, we are here to bring it to you. And this week, we're doing an entire segment on things that the people of the Cayman Islands should be protesting. Yeah, this is going to be a good one because we're going to be looking at some of the things that nobody ever wants to protest, because, you know, we only protest one issue, which is the one with the LGBT community. But there's so much more going on this island that we decided to dedicate an entire week to topics that we should be protesting, but we are not. And hopefully you will be joining in on the discussion. And today's topic, which we will get to a little bit later on this morning, is all about deadbeat dads. Whoa. Now there's a topic worth protesting about, and we're going to talk about the impact that these fathers have on the lives of their children and by extension on the lives of other people in the community. So there's one that we never want to talk about. We're always cloaking up, our sons when in fact they are deadbeat dads. So we'll get to that discussion. So we have an entire lineup for this week. We'll go through it here in a minute. and talking about some of those things. But let's talk about Tropical Storm Laura first. So Tropical Storm Laura, I'm just going to look up the most current advisory. She shifted a little bit over the weekend, and that shift meant that she is actually moving closer to Cayman Brac. So as of 4 p.m., the 4 p.m. advisory yesterday was like, she's going to be less than 100 miles from Cayman Brac, which is relatively close for a storm because, you know, the storm force winds can extend quite a distance. So because of that, Laura, you know, advisories went into effect right away for the Cayman Islands. We're under tropical storm warning, and we just needed to keep an eye on the storm. So from last night, we were going to start feeling some inclement weather from this. So lots of rain and thunderstorm and all the good stuff. Now, if you're like me, you love rain and thunderstorm and you love to be able to sleep through it. The only thing that would make a stormy night any better for me is if I actually had a zinc roof. Remember the zinc roofs, folks? I don't know how many of you guys have ever slept under a zinc roof, but there's something nostalgic about hearing the dripping of water on a zinc roof. That drip, 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 drip. So much fun. But no, most of us no longer have zinc roofs. We've got fancy tiled roofs and all sorts of other stuff. So, but still, it brings back the nostalgia of it all, of being able to just cozy up during the storm. If you've got a loved one, you just get a little bit tighter and you get in there and you snooze better. But some of us have households with little people and dogs who do not like storms. So my dog doesn't like a storm anymore. You know, when she was older, I'm not sure if it's like a senior citizen moment. It's only been happening for the last couple of years, because when she was younger, she was not bothered by storms at all. And now she gets very, very antsy. So we got to snuggle up with Coco too. Oh, poor little Coco. Anyway, let's look at the latest with Tropical Storm Laura. Let's see where we're at in terms of her most recent numbers. So basically, it just looks like we're going to get a lot of rain from this system, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I think we could do with some rain, to be honest. I'm just trying to get a fix on her current position. So basically, it's Tropical Storm Laura. Marco has been downgraded now to Tropical Storm as well. So these are the two storms that I mentioned earlier that could very well be converging into one. And they're saying that this is the first time in history that you would have two storms heading for the exact same, their projected path is the exact same location. So what they're potentially looking at with these storms is that they will come together, merge into one, and then hit the, I think it's kind of the Texas coast, or is that Louisiana kind of area. We'll look at that here in a second. But that is the projected path of these storms. So not really good for those people for sure. Because even having just two thunderstorms converge is, although they're not hurricanes, will still create a lot of flash flooding and a lot of issues for them. So we're already starting to think about them. And in fact, the National Hurricane Center is now live. So give me 1 second. Let me see if I can just pull this up because, hey, here on CMR, we're all about bringing you guys the latest and the best news as it happens. So they have just gone live. Give me 1 second. If I can extract this really quickly, I will pull this up so that we can all watch it live. How about that? So this is the National Weather Center, and they're talking about the storm, of course. So give me 1 quick second here, folks. I am going to attempt to do this as seamlessly as possible so we can get a real live fix. This is a 7:30 update on where Tropical Storm Laura is at and what's going on with her. So give me 1 quick second. A slow computer. Okay, so let's see if we can get this going here, folks. There's so many people who are actually tuned into this at the same time as well. So let's see if we can, it's just spinning and spinning and spinning. We're gonna do something about this internet here soon. So whilst we're waiting on that, just give me one quick second here. I'm trying to pull it up. I may have to kill something in terms of my internet connection, but we do have some videos coming in for what the storm is doing to Jamaica as well. And we're going to be posting those here in a minute because Jamaica is getting, from yesterday, actually, I received video footage of Kingston getting like torrential rain. So let me just see here. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just going to kill some internet because everything's pulling down the feed. So let me just kill that and see if I can get a better connection. And then we're going to show you guys what is being discussed this morning in relation to thunderstorm Laura and Marco. Hold on.
With some heavy tropical downpours and also that onshore flow with the storm surge. So let's look at some of those impacts here. This is the surge. We still have a possibility because of that onshore flow from Morgan City.
We will come back to it. Unfortunately, we're not having very much luck with that stream, but we've got alternatives in terms of getting real weather updates on thunderstorm Laura. So like I said, we have been receiving footage out of Jamaica, which I'm going to post up here in just a second, in terms of what this storm has been doing to Jamaica. And can I just tell you, it's like torrential rain. It's just unbelievable, actually. Wow. Yeah. So not good. So as I said earlier, you know, thunderstorms are nothing to sneeze at. Yes, it's not obviously as bad as a hurricane. So we have to continue to be vigilant, I think is the bottom line here. We have to keep an eye on these things and to ensure that we are prepared. I mean, whatever you got to do, make sure your roof tiles are fixed. You know, you've got a plan in terms of like the hurricane. Big shout out to Cayman Airways. Cayman Airways galvanized their efforts right away yesterday once they saw that the storm was coming, and they immediately jumped into action and put on some additional flights coming out of the Brac. This is why we love having a national airline, because trust me, if we did not have Cayman Airways, if we did not have a national airline, I know sometimes we're a little bit tough on Cayman Airways because we do have expectations of them, but we are also very, very grateful for the wonderful service that they provide, especially in times like this. Because if they were not there, I can assure you, American Airlines and nobody else would be flying in right now just to get people from Cayman Brac back to Grand Cayman. So the idea yesterday was to try to get as many people to evacuate, because there's been a lot of people there staying, for staycations. And Cayman Airways decided to try to get those people back to Grand Cayman as much as possible, or as quickly as possible, I should say. So they put on additional flights almost immediately by the 4 o'clock advisory. I think it might have been shortly before the 4 o'clock advisory, because they could see that this storm was actually going to be coming a little bit closer to Cayman Brac than any of the other islands. So the sister islands, obviously Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, are very much close to each other, and the wind is out there howling. So Cayman Brac Daycare Center will be closed today, folks, in case you live on the Brac and you've not received any of these notifications as yet. We just wanted to post these to make sure that you were well aware of the pending situation this morning, the current situation really this morning. We've got sheltering your pets at Noah's Ark in Cayman Brac. So please be aware of the provisions now that are in place for how to shelter, especially if you've got little cats and dogs. And of course, like I said, I've got a dog. And so my consideration has always has to be, what is going to happen to poor little Coco? Because she does not react well to storms anymore, or not even storms, just heavy rain. So, we need to have a plan that includes her. And this is why it's important to make sure that you are prepared. And the only way you can really be prepared is by having a plan in advance. So road cleanup crew, if you're part of the road cleanup crew, you do not have to report to work this morning. So again, in case you were getting ready and you missed it, Cayman Mall Road is telling you, do not report to work this morning. It is not necessary to do so. They've canceled that. They have also closed the district administration building. So if you work in that building, basically that's where a lot of the government workers are housed. You likewise will not have to go in today. So this is a bit of good news, I think, for parents who may have been thinking that they had to go to work, when in fact they will be oh wow, someone's sending me some pictures and stuff out of Jamaica. This is crazy. Wow. So yeah, I'm going to share some of that with you guys here in a second. Let me just get those up. Some countries, when they have flash flooding, it's literally devastating in terms of what happens to the ground. And if they have mountainous areas, they're going to be getting a lot of rain and stuff as well. Obviously, those mountainous areas have the potential for mudslides. And this is the thunder storm warning flags that have gone up. I think a lot of us forget the different levels of storm warnings. So, it's a good idea to probably do a little bit of a refresher on this, because I always think we hear a thunderstorm warning. What's the difference between a thunderstorm watch versus a warning? Often we just don't know. Oh my gosh. So listen, my God, talk about breaking news here on Cayman Mall Road. We have just received video footage of it looks like a car fire, another car fire last night on School Road. Whoa. Oh, wow. Okay, give me a second here, folks. It's like information overload. We're getting all of this information coming into us at one time. Whoa, this is crazy. All right, give me a second. I've got video footage. I've got photos. School Road, Georgetown at 3:15 in the morning. Someone was messaging me these, which are all video footage of, wow. This is all video footage of apparently a car fire. A car was ablaze last night. Yikes. So let me get that posted up as well here shortly. I'll be able to share that with you guys. So give me one quick second here. So thank you guys so much. So just remember that you can always send, and this is how we get a lot of breaking news all the time. It's you all who really do a fantastic job of keeping us informed in terms of what's happening. And yes, we do get the latest information, and looks like we've got it right here. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to make this available for you guys to see. Wow. Okay, so we have got just ignore the noise for 1 second, folks. I'm just trying to forward it to the other phone that I've got in front of me. But okay, so we have, okay, so we've got video footage out of Jamaica. We've got a fire in Cayman. What next? Give me 1 second, good folks. Let me just pull this all up. And then we're going to start having a discussion here. All right, so let's just share some of the video footage of the Jamaica incident first, just because those came in first, to be honest. And then we can go on to watch some of the footage from this fire last night. And there was another fire over the weekend. Did you guys see that one? Where a vehicle caught fire. We actually have the footage of that. I can share the link with you guys here in a second. But yeah, a vehicle caught fire over the weekend, and oh my gosh, it was like crazy in terms of it was completely gutted and destroyed. And the most interesting thing about this incident is it actually happened at a gas station of all places. And a lady who lives in that area is like, oh my God, well, thank God that it did not happen. I see someone sent me a boat as well. I don't know if that's in relation to Jamaica. So give me 1 second here. Yeah, so someone actually, so thank God that, I mean, a fire at a gas station is never, ever, ever, ever anything to sneeze about. So they were like, thank God that the gas station didn't explode, or it could have been so much worse, right? And I thought to myself, yeah, that's for sure. So give me 1 second here. Let me just see what we're dealing with. Just crazy, absolutely crazy. All right, so I'm going to try to pull this up on the screen so that you guys can get a glimpse into what is happening in Jamaica because of the storm. So I think right now she is primarily, that's the tropical storm Laura, in case you're missing it. She is primarily over Jamaica, and she is pouring a lot of rain down on Jamaica as well. So I was trying to reach my regional correspondent, and it does not appear that she's responding, but she lives right in Kingston, so it could very well be that she is actually being impacted by the storm severely if this is what's happening. So we've got Marco, who's going to move in with torrential rain, and Laura is looking like she might be turning into a hurricane. And listen to this, Laura has already killed several people, at least 12 in Haiti and 12 in the Dominican Republic. And this is what I was saying this morning. For us, we think of a thunderstorm as no big deal. But in fact, for people who live in areas where they don't always have the best housing, or, you know, they may be subjected to a lot of flash floods and stuff like that. A thunderstorm can be just as deadly for them, or extremely deadly. So again, at least 9 people were reported dead in Haiti, 3 people were reported dead in the Dominican Republic. Of course, you know, those islands, those countries share a single island, meaning it's a single piece of land. It's just divided by a border. And the storm triggered several landslides and cut off isolated towns. And at its peak, the storm knocked out power to more than 1 million customers already. Unbelievable. I mean, we have so much to be thankful for. Can I just tell you? So the latest for us is that conditions expected over Grand Cayman to be a bit more subdued with Tropical Storm Laura. It's going to pass about 155 miles northeast of Grand Cayman at its closest point of approach at about 10 a.m. this morning. So right after we finish this show, folks, the wind direction is expected to be northwesterly, backing towards the southeast at 15 to 20 knots, with higher gusts by mid-morning becoming southerly 15 to 20 knots by evening. Higher gusts are also likely in and around heavy showers. So rainfall expected for Grand Cayman 1 to 3 inches, although likely through tomorrow evening. Showers will be locally heavy at times. And of course, you know, for us, that's actually something to really consider because we ourselves can't take much rain. I mean, thankfully, we don't have any mountains to really be impacted by flash flooding, but we do have a lot of flooding that, you know, all the license plates are going to come off now when you're driving through town. So that is certainly something to consider. So I'm just having a look at our other weather advisories that are coming in for the morning, because I think one just came in right after 7 this morning. All right, folks. So we're going to continue to bring you updates and information on Tropical Storm Laura that's impacting Jamaica at the moment. So let me just share with you guys a couple photos that we have received in relation to this tropical storm. So bear with me. I'm going to just pull those up. It looks a little bit scary, to be honest. And this is coming out of Haiti this morning. So like I said, these poor people in Haiti already have a number of reported deaths. And we also have footage that was just shared out of Jamaica. So a lot of the footage out of Jamaica is actually, there are some photos which I'll show you. And then the video footage, which we will pull up here shortly. I'll make sure that you guys are able to see those as well. So our thoughts and prayers are going out to these people, because I can assure you that this does not look like anything to joke about, really. I'm hoping that there will be no deaths in Jamaica. You know, Jamaica has an election that's coming up on September the 3rd, and they also have COVID, which seems to be getting a bit out of control there. And there were some rumors circulating there yesterday about the ICU beds being at capacity, but the government has said that those rumors are not true. And so they're cautioning people about circulating misinformation. But here's another picture. This is actually Jamaica. This is what the torrential rains from Thunderstorm Laura is actually doing to Jamaica at the moment. These are freshly received pictures this morning. And like I said, by yesterday afternoon, we already were receiving footage out of Kingston that was showing that there was torrential rain in the Kingston area. So very, very shocking indeed. Here's another photo here. It looks like a vehicle that is trying to go through an area, but is having some difficulties doing so. I'm just trying to see if I can pull up this video for you guys. Okay, just give me 1 second here. Yeah, so There are a number of pictures that we have received and video footage as well. And I'm just trying to pull up the video footage. I think probably the easiest way to share the video footage is on YouTube, because sometimes because of the size, it becomes a little tricky to share it natively here. So let me just see if we can put this together. And then I'll put the link in the description below. But yeah, this is unbelievable. I mean, the flooding is just shocking. You know, flash floodings, flooding of rivers, this happens all over the world. And the Caribbean is certainly no exception to these things either. So, wow. I'm always shocked when I see it though, because I always think, oh my gosh, it's horrible. So let me just pull up another photo here. And again, thank you to the individuals who have provided these pictures to us this morning. And I'm also going to be showing you guys a bit about this car fire that apparently just happened. So let me just touch bases with you guys. It seems like a lot of information is just coming in very quickly. So good morning to John. He's joining us this morning. Morna, Christine, Cassidy, thank you so much for tuning in. Hi, Larry. Larry is joining us from New York. Larry, I hope you're well. Lisette is also joining us. Evelyn, it is a wet morning, but I feel like we are still in good stead in terms of what our situation is. Not too bad, as far as I'm concerned. When I'm looking at some of the video footage and other things that are coming in, I'm feeling extremely thankful this morning. Let's be very honest here. So yes, we're gonna just put up this video and then I'm gonna share it with you guys. All right, so Thunderstorm Laura is drenching a few places, Haiti and Jamaica included, and of course the Dominican Republic as well. So good morning to Patricia. A pleasant good morning to Miss Esther. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Esther, if I'm not mistaken, is actually in the UK. Ruby, thank you. John is here for it. Olivia. Olivia, I'm hopeful that you are getting registered to vote, my dear. We've not forgotten about that. Very, very important step to take in advance of the upcoming election for us, which will be May the 26th of 2021. Sophia, I'm doing well. I think I mentioned to you guys last week that I've been having, I think it's pretty much a sinus headache. I've kind of come to that conclusion now. So that is still kind of there. At night, I tend to get very, very congested. So I've done my little Vicks treatment for the morning. And I am just going to keep an eye on that. I think I need to get some. I saw another woman mentioning on the Real Women of Cayman group that perhaps she was needing some, what's it called? But anyway, it's like a sinus. It has a little bit of sinus relief. So it relieves the pressure of the sinuses, and then just a basic acetaminophen for the pain or whatever, because I think a lot of people, she was actually saying that she was suffering from migraines because of it. I don't have migraines, but yeah. So Cassidy does not like slab roofs. So Cassidy, are you a proponent then of the old time zinc roofs? They were quite interesting. If we grew up with those, some of us, so we're well aware. Daisy, good morning to you. Mario says that the NHC doesn't have a clue that storm's heaviest rains left Jamaica and is over Grand Cayman. Go on Weather Underground and view for yourself. NHC only talking about path and projected path. That storm is over us. Well, I don't think it's over us directly, but I think it is coming as close as it's going to come, which is still quite a ways out. But we will definitely get rain bands from the storm. So yeah, Weather Underground has been around for a very long time. I remember Weather Underground from, did you guys just hear that thunder? Thunder rolling in. Yeah, Weather Underground, I remember watching it feverishly during Hurricane, what was her name? Hurricane Ivan, his name. And so, yes. So Marco, then Laura is going to move into the Gulf. Laura is expected to become a hurricane. And the weather here, I'll show you this map that Weather Underground has up. And basically, they're focusing on the States as well. Most of these websites, listen, they focus very little on us. But it says Louisiana residents flee the Gulf Coast ahead of Hurricane Marco, Thunderstorm Laura. Texas, Mexico prepare for evacuations. This was posted a little while ago, but yes, Marco has weakened a little bit, but we know that so much more can happen in terms of the path of these storms. So once you're in the general cone, within any degree of diversion, I think the idea, honestly, is to get out if you can. If you cannot get out, then by all means, you will want to prepare as much as you can. So for us, it'll mostly be heavy rain that is projected at this particular point, but we are under thunderstorm warning. And I wanted to say, let me just go back to this, because I think a lot of us, again, we actually have the 8 a.m. advisory on Tropical Storm Laura. So let me just make sure that we are, yeah, so it's not quite over us, but there's radar pictures here of it. I'm just having a look. I mean, it's fairly close. Like, we're getting the outer bands of it for sure. So yeah. So Tropical Storm Laura, as of 4 a.m., we're looking at 65 miles per hour. And she's looking a little organized to me. So I would expect Laura to turn into a hurricane, I think.
Good morning, Randy.
So just give me 1 second. All right, let's see if we can pull this one up here, folks, because this one is playing for us. So let me just try this. Just want you guys to get the latest information here as it becomes available.
Good morning, Randy and Christina. Wind shear, dry air really doing a number on Marco. The system is weaker this morning, 60 miles per hour, moving northwest at 10. There's our satellite imagery. You can see the heavier cloud and dense cloud cover pushing towards the Florida coast. That's where the heaviest rainfall has been developing so far this morning, with very strong storms here offshore along the panhandle of Florida. Very limited rainfall along the coastline for southeast Louisiana. Still a chance for some locally heavy rainfall at times today, but overall our risk for stronger storms is really starting to diminish as well. Here's the latest track, still carrying the center of Marco to the west and just south of our coastline or near our coastline, and then pushing it to a tropical depression by Tuesday afternoon, down to 35 miles per hour Wednesday at 1 o'clock. But note again, this is the center. The impact's well outside the center, which is why we say never focus on the center of the circulation. We do have updates to the warnings as well. All the hurricane warnings have been dropped. We have tropical storm warnings still continuing for the South Shore, portions of the North Shore, including St. Tammany, also over Lake Pontchartrain and along coastal Mississippi for still those very gusty winds. Storm surge watches have been dropped around Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas. We're still left with the storm surge warning along the coastline here from Terrebonne up into Lake Bourne and also for Hancock and Harrison counties. And that's to account for the storm surge potential of still 2 to 4 feet today. The flash flood watch has been dropped for Tangi, but still from St. Tammany, all of the South Shore, because through this afternoon and late tonight, if we can still get some of those heavier rain bands to push in, we still have a chance to see some locally heavy rainfall. So another 3 to 5 inches still possible. And that also includes portions of coastal Mississippi. So again, we talked about the tropical storm warnings. Here is a look at some of the gust potential this afternoon. And these aren't tropical storm force gusts, but there's a chance some of them could punch a little bit higher throughout the day today. So here's the forecast. It really doesn't show too much rain through lunchtime today. We're looking at upper 70s, some low 80s around, but where we see drier conditions, a chance will pop to around the upper 80s to near 90 degrees. I still think we'll see heaviest rainfall for coastal Mississippi and possibly around areas like St. Bernard and Plaquemines through late afternoon and early evening. So definitely monitoring, but we really have to focus on Laura. Laura is 65 miles per hour, so it hasn't strengthened since the last advisory, but really impressive with this system has been the fact that the center of circulation, even once moving over the mountainous regions of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and even transitioning near Cuba, has been able to pretty much hold together. And even if the center has been slightly disrupted, you can see here on the southern side of the system that we have lots of convection that has been able to hold tight. So this system is forecast to strengthen even as it pushes over land. So by late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, we're looking at 70 miles per hour. By Tuesday afternoon, that system is in the Gulf. Laura is a hurricane by this time at 75 miles per hour. Nothing but go time for this system over the Gulf because of limited wind shear. Marco has pretty much cleared the path for this system to get stronger, and that's what the Hurricane Center forecast basically calls for. So right now, landfall is still for late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, just near areas around the Sabine Pass at a Category 2, winds of 105 miles per hour. But as we're seeing with Marco, the center west on the eastern side, all the impacts, and that's where we would be sitting with this system. So we do have still big concerns. Already, tropical storm watches and warnings issued for the Florida Keys. I'll have more on this when we come back. Randy and Christina, back to you.
Okay, folks, so that report, although it initially focused on the US, because you know they always do, sorry, there's definitely some concern about Laura. She looks like a strong one. They're saying that the mountains and stuff, Haiti, Jamaica, have done nothing to Laura in terms of sharing away any of her development. So Laura looks like she's well organized and she is actually headed towards being a hurricane, and she's projected to be a hurricane going into the week as she heads towards the US. So if you live in that area in the US, and I know that some of you do, please prepare. We have a lot of Caymanians all over the world, and we always encourage you to prepare just as much as we do, because I always say that the homes in Cayman are built far better than a lot of the homes in the US. At least we have a lot of concrete structures. I think in the US, a lot of those homes are made out of like sheetrock and parts of plywood. So yes, I would say to be on the lookout, right? Let me just see here. 658. All right, so I'm just trying to do a quick little check otherwise. Okay, folks, so let's just keep an eye on Laura. We're going to continue to monitor her progress, and I will keep you guys updated as and when messages are coming in. So we'll expect another advisory at 10 o'clock this morning. So we'll ensure that you guys get those updated details. So Kathy and John, thank you so much for suggesting salt water. Definitely good morning to Lisa. Lisa says that a good deed was done by a truck driver in Cayman just now on Crew Road at the mini mart. Security was riding in the rain, stopped to shelter from the rain when the truck driver came, offered to take him, and the truck driver. Okay, so he offered to take him home with his bicycle. My friend did not get the plate, but she was so excited that I had to share it with CMR. Thank you so much for that feel good story, Laura. We definitely, I think, have to remember that we're all in this together. And I, for one, am always very, very thankful for some good news. So thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing that with us. Did I just call you Laura? I think I just called you Laura. Thunderstorm Lisa, Thunderstorm Laura. We got it. All right. Let's keep it moving here, folks. Like I said, I've just posted a video about what's happening in Jamaica, so perhaps we can have a quick look at that right now. I am trying to pull up some additional feeds here for you guys. Give me 1 second. So yeah, unfortunately, Jamaicans getting hammered. Some of this footage is probably from yesterday, to be honest. But let me just see here. Yeah, so Thunderstorm Laura drenches Jamaica. Tropical storm. I always want to call it a thunderstorm, but it's actually a tropical storm. All right, so let's have a look at this particular video, which shows some of what is happening in Jamaica between yesterday and today. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just pull this up for us to view so that you can just see how incredibly blessed we are.
This is a lot. Lord, please don't let my car shut up, please.
They need to break the water. Come on, take the picture, man. They need to break the water.
Wow.
Well, this is the damage on the Garntown Road. As you can see, lots of water coming down from the hill. The place is impossible right now. It's all black. We have boulders coming down from the hillside.
Wow. Okay, folks. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, just got some annoying message from Facebook. Yeah, so what can I say except we definitely need to keep an eye on this. Evelyn said light went out from last night in St. Thomas and came back this morning. Lots of flooding in Bamboo River, Morant Bay, bridge washed away in Font Hill. Trinityville to Morant Bay is impassable. Wow. So her friend is providing some information. And this is the thing about folks living in the 21st century. We get real-time information literally as it's happening. You know, fires are happening, floods, and we're getting the videos and tracking the information as it comes in and as it becomes available. So all right, so we'll continue to watch it. Thank you, Evelyn, for that updated information as well. So in terms of other things that we wanted to get to this morning, let me just see what else we had on the agenda. Obviously, we want to talk about this whole deadbeat dad conversation. And I'll share the link with you guys for the YouTube video. I don't see any of the messages going through to her correspondent, so I suspect that she's probably left the area of Kingston that she's in, because sometimes she has to do that just to deal with like outages. Sometimes she's like, she has no internet or she has power outages and stuff, and she's very close to halfway tree, is that what it's called? And that's supposed to be a fairly central location, right? So I'm always surprised when she messages me and she's like, oh, we're having another issue with internet today. And I'm like, that's like a busy area. Like, why are there always issues with the internet? But there you have it. So thank you guys so much for the information that you provide to us so that we can know exactly what is happening around the world, in particular in our region. So I am going to pull up the weather channel here as well. And I'm just going to have a look and see. I'm going to kind of watch them in the background to see what they've got going on. Okay, Mitzi, thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us. So over the weekend, we had quite an eventful weekend. We had Gonzalo McLaughlin was buried on Saturday. Our condolences to his family. As you remember, just a couple weeks ago, was it even a week ago? I felt like this one was kind of fast. Mr. Gonzalo was in a car accident by Pease Bay area. And unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries and he passed away. This is interesting. Okay, give me 1 second here. So, right. So, my apologies. I'm just trying to. Okay, so yes, his funeral was this weekend. So lots of people certainly tuned in for that. It was live streamed because all right, so his funeral was this weekend. So we extend our condolences to his family, his co-workers, and his friends. Of course, they seem to have been a very well liked young man. And unfortunately, now a family has lost their beloved brother and father. I do know that he was a father. So I feel really especially bad for his children. There was a car fire over the weekend, and there was a protest in town over the weekend by, it was organized, I think, by some ministers of religion who were protesting the domestic partnership bill. And they had sent out a number of voice notes. I don't know if you guys heard those last week, encouraging people to come out to the protest. So according to eyewitnesses, they had maybe 120 people, which in Cayman is actually impressive because, like I said, this is the only topic we protest anyway. But to get people to show up to any event is like earth shattering, really. So they did have that protest. And so when I was kind of thinking about the concept of protesting over the weekend, I'm like, there are so many things that I wish that people would protest in this country that people simply do not. And that gave me an idea then to do an entire week of topics where we look at least a portion of the show. We look at actual, topics that are worth protesting, social issues in particular that are worth protesting. So I want to look at some of those this morning. And I want to also show you guys the entire lineup so that you know what's coming for later in the week. So today is Deadbeats Dads. And I thought of this only because I saw a post by a young lady on social media that I thought was incredibly interesting, where she was talking about she didn't specify any names, but I happen to know that she has got a deadbeat dad in her life. Luckily for her, she's been able to secure a good husband who takes care of both his stepchildren and his own children. But a lot of times you do not find that is the case. So I think it was Bruce who joined the conversation earlier. And Bruce said that one of the concerns is that women need to make better choices when it comes to choosing men. And I'm all for that. And we're going to talk about that here this morning as part of the deadbeat dad conversation. So let us jump right into it and start talking about, what's a deadbeat dad, first of all. And of course, are we responsible as women for just choosing really poor men? Is there anything that we could be doing in terms of making better decisions? The answer is oftentimes yes, absolutely. However, once the child is here, it's time to step up to the plate, right? So let's have a look then at this particular topic. So good morning to you, Sue. What's a deadbeat dad? Well, basically, a deadbeat dad is a father who most people think of as a sperm donor, in the sense that they are there on record, I guess, as being the child's father, but they're not making any sort of contribution to the child financially or often otherwise, simply not contributing to the support of children. Now, listen, children cost money, just like anything else. Children cost money to raise. And in this day and age, it seems like the price tag just keeps going up and up and up and up. And, what are you going to do? They need to eat. There's clothing requirements to make sure that they are clothed and they have school clothes, they have school uniforms. They have clothes to wear if they go out and about. They have educational needs. So it would be wonderful if all of our children had the benefit of being able to not just go to like a government school or private school, but to have and be able to be involved in extracurricular activities. So part of the extracurricular activities are the associated costs with those things. So none of those things come for free, I'm afraid. So you've got to be willing to fork out money to be able to put your kids in karate, dance, piano lessons, whatever. And we do know that affording children these opportunities of being involved in extracurricular activities really is an amazing opportunity that will help them to develop into better people. So it's to their benefit. So if you're a parent, you get and you understand why you want your child to be maybe fluent in more than one language, or why you want to involve your child in piano lessons, or, even academically, the stimulation that children get from learning music and second languages helps to stimulate portions of their brain that the only way they can be stimulated is to actually, engage in those types of activities. So this post, and I'm going to just share it with you guys, and it was actually a public post. I'm not going to necessarily say who posted it, but I thought it made some very, very valid points. It said that it should have been so that so-called parents, and that's in brackets, had to pay off their child support arrears before they could withdraw their pension. The court system works against the parent that works hard and makes all of the sacrifices. And the parent that does the bare minimum get away with it, wasting everyone's time. And so this is in relation to deadbeat parents. I thought that this was actually a really sound idea. Recently, we were all able to get pension payouts. If you had access to a pension, of course, you could access that. And one of the concerns is that, there are men who are in arrears sometimes by thousands and thousands of dollars when it comes to the care of their children. Those children have been suffering for years, and oftentimes it's a back and forth, and nothing of subsequent happens to those parents, unfortunately. And so this suggestion was, if they were able to access their pension fund, why not have allowed that pension money to be deducted to cover their arrears, at least in part? I mean, I guess it certainly depends on how far back they are in arrears, but a few people chimed in on the conversation. One person said, my daughter's father kept lying, and I don't see any changes, worthless piece of what. And then the person said, well, I got to sing on it until I make some sort of waves because they love to watch my page more than Cayman Road, which is kind of funny. So someone else said, Sandy Hill, our children have been a priority. I don't think so. They're worried about what people want to do with their lives behind closed doors. So this is a very, very good point that one individual makes. Thank you so much for that. And I absolutely agree with that. And that's the whole point, is here we are protesting this weekend about domestic partnerships. But when was the last time any of you, or you saw anyone out there protesting about deadbeat fathers? Now, listen, deadbeat fathers and fathers who refuse to pay for their children, this isn't just about, allowing your children to take dance lessons or getting to extracurricular activities. There are instances when this is about whether or not your children are going to eat, whether or not they're going to have to rely on NAU to be able to have the bare essentials, a roof over their head. And you, as this one parent said, as the mom, they are potentially making sacrifices to make sure that all of those things are available for their children, when these fathers out there just like sperm donors are just dropping children left, right, and center. And who cares? Now, listen, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is, why is it that women seem to sometimes pick really poor men, especially when they're younger? And all I can tell you is, this is what I tell all young people. And again, maybe this is part of our religious upbringing, where we believe that we can have unprotected sex and have children and bring children into this world, and then that's it. God is going to help us. God is going to help us raise your children. First of all, this narrative that a lot of these kids are growing up with in church, no fornication, we say. Well, we know that that's as unrealistic as, just about everything. You can tell your kids that all you want, but you need to educate your children that if they don't listen to you, or they don't listen to what the Bible says in terms of no premarital sex, you've got to be smart and you have got to protect yourself. And let's talk about what those available options are. We need to have those conversations. As parents, we need to sit down and have tough conversations with our young ladies that, listen, there are men out there who are only going to be seeking to jump on you literally to get a free ride. They're not interested in anything else. They're not going to be good fathers. Sometimes they're too young, they're too immature, they're not ready, they will never be ready, because a lot of these men go through their entire lives just as sperm donors from one woman to the next, and they are never going to really take care of their children. You know, if they're in a relationship with the mom for 6 months, a year out of that child's life, they hang around for a little bit and they're there. What's wrong with telling our young girls to stop picking men who are, before they're deadbeat fathers, they're just deadbeat young men? They have no job. I'm sorry. Why am I going to be laying up with a man that has no job and I'm not taking protection myself and using protection to make sure that we don't bring a child into that type of a situation? You know, young ladies can be easily fooled. Oh, he comes from a good family. His family's going to help out. His family's going to take care of this child. And then when the child shows up, his mom and his family is like, he already got 3 other children out there, and we are not taking this on as a burden. So it's unfortunate that we no longer live in a day and age where, you know, men are really told to live up to their responsibility. But here's the saddest part about this conversation is, has that ever been the case? I mean, I was speaking to, I think it was Dr. Frank the other day and Charles Whitaker, separate conversations, but we were talking about the same thing. Whereas part of our slave history, and this is why sometimes you see me harping on history, and everybody's like, oh, why are we having this conversation about our slave history? Because listen, folks, if you do not know where you've come from, you certainly can't appreciate your current position and what your future potentially holds for you. So one of the things that they did as part of the slave regime is they wanted to break apart the family. That was important for a number of different reasons. They didn't want you getting attached as a slave mom or dad to your children, your offspring, because they were to just be seen as property. And part of that remit of them being seen as property is they could grab your children, sell them at will, you know, separate them from birth. They were forcing men. So if they had a man on the plantation that was particularly strong and strapping, right? They would take him and they would force him to have sex with other women on the plantation, because of course this was kind of like genetics 101 in their head, right? He's strong and strapping, let's pair him with, you know, the most fertile woman on the plantation. They're going to produce strong, strapping kids, hopefully more male offspring or even strong women that could be used in the plantation setting. And so that worked perfectly fine for those individuals. Well, I hate to tell you, but that has actually had a lasting impact on how African Americans in particular seem to, you know, treat their significant others. You know, there has been this sort of historical, what's what I'm looking for? Just passiveness with having children and just leaving them and having no sort of emotional connection with them. And I think if you look at a lot of that in a historical context, you can see where, at least in part, it has directly come from hundreds of years of the slave mentality, this slave history, where initially you were actually forced to do that. And to this day, we continue to engage in behaviors and certain things in terms of our society and socially that encourages this non-connection with children and encourages our young man to go out there and just drop sperm every which way and then take no responsibility financially or otherwise for those children. And it is quite unfortunate. But the comments were very, very interesting on social media in relation to this discussion. So one person said that the pension company, apparently they had made some attempts to reach out to the pension company, and the pension company actually basically fought to not pay this money or not pay the arrears. And this person was like, you would think that the pension company were the ones who were actually in court for arrears because they were fighting so incredibly hard to ensure that this father's pension money was not touched for child support arrears, which I thought was so interesting. And I did say to this person, I'm curious to know what pension administrator would be doing that. Like what's the end game here? If he has financial obligations, right? Those financial obligations should be paid, including the rearing of his children. So there's a lot of comments on this post. A lot of women chimed in. This mother says that, she has a lot of regrets for having these 3 children with, I guess, this one individual, because now she knows better. Obviously, she does not regret the children themselves, but she says lack of guidance, proper parenting, and confidence. That won't be the case with our girls. So again, this is coming back to the tough conversation that parents need to be having with their children. I mean, listen, most of this stuff is very, very predictable. I don't know who this young man is that's being referred to in this conversation, but I would be willing to bet that you could probably look at his history even before he became a father. And, it would have been reasonable to expect or to figure out that he would not have been a great father and he would not have been contributing to the success of his children financially or otherwise. I'm willing to put my neck on the chopping block to say that that was reasonably foreseeable that that would have been the case. One person says, if only they would do that here in terms of, someone else says that, in other jurisdictions such as the US, there are measures that are taken like suspending your driver's license. They will send you to jail. They will garnish your wages. There are things that they will do to try to address this deadbeat issue. Now, here's what I think. I think the courts do as much as the law allows them to do. And rightfully, someone pointed out that employers are also part of the problem. Because you have employers out there who are willing to lie and fill out these forms on behalf of their workers, where essentially they're claiming that they're not paying them as much. So they'll pay them cash or pay them under the table to avoid them having to pay X amount in child support, because the court isn't going to order you to pay child support if you don't have a job, or, if your employer says you're only making $1,200 a month, the court isn't going to say, well, give me $600 out of that for 3 children. They're going to say, wow, that only leaves you $600 a month. There's no way that you can survive in the Cayman Islands with $600 a month. So your financial situation as a father is looked at, your bills, what you have coming in terms of salary. But if any of those things are misconstrued, or if your employer is lying, which apparently is happening quite a bit, about what your salary is and what you're actually making, then that only helps to perpetrate a fraud against the children of this country and a fraud against the court as well, because that would be an offense to be lying to the courts. Now, here's where I think legislators need to step up to the ball, right? So whilst the opposition and other members of the Legislative Assembly are obsessed with the domestic partnership bill, can we look at some other issues in this country that need some serious attention? So this particular topic of deadbeat dads impacts a lot of parents, and it has for a very long time. So mothers have been struggling and living below the poverty line because of fathers who refuse to live up to their responsibilities, even when they have the job to do so. Someone suggested going to the courtroom steps with big pictures of these deadbeat dads and plastering their pictures all over. That's one thought. I mean, something needs to be done. So employers are lying. Their own parents are not stepping up to the plate. In this case, pension companies did not want to fork out any money. They're claiming that nope, they can't. Listen, garnishing of wages and that sort of thing falls within the remit of the court. And if you come into a windfall of $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is that you're getting from your pension money, your children are suffering during COVID just like you are. So why shouldn't the children be able to benefit from your pension withdrawals? That only seems fair to me. But of course, the pension companies didn't see it that way. So Darlene says, I couldn't agree more with that post. Great suggestion. Let me just back up. I think we missed a few things. So Rosanna says, sorry, she tuned in late. Some women don't see the poor side of them until they're married, and their children sometimes, if they don't get what they want, they call us mean. Well, I tell you what, Rosanna, I guess none of us ever see the bad side of someone that we're in a relationship with at the moment until things start to go bad, right? So we all have high hopes that, oh yes, they're going to be a good person if I have a child with them. But, again, you need to be having these conversations, because when you're younger, a lot of these guys are not interested in having children. They'll say yes when they're really not. So listen, as a young woman, no one can force you to do anything with your body that you do not want to do. So if you don't want to have a child, this is where we need to start putting on our thinking caps and think about our future and the future of our children. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to be stuck with a deadbeat dad for one child, much less 2 or 3. And it's unfortunate that as women, we have to think this way, but we have to think this way. This is about our lives and the lives of our children, because by and large, women, and this isn't always the case, but most women do not have the option to just walk away from a child. That doesn't happen that often, right? Most of the time, it is the mom who's going to be the primary caregiver. Now, I'm not saying that there are not dads out there who don't take on that role. And I'm not saying that certainly there are not women out there who neglect their children and do pretty much walk away. But for the most part, it's going to be the mom who is birthing the child who will be having that responsibility. And it seems like socially we are okay with men walking away and not having any responsibility at all. But when a woman does it, oh my God, she's a horrible mother. She's this. And of course, yes, if you walk away and leave your children, right, you are seen in that way. Sometimes, though, I think that's the best thing that some mothers can do, because they're such horrible mothers that the alternative becomes you screw up the lives of your children versus walking away and maybe putting them in foster care, giving somebody else the opportunity to raise them in a loving and balanced environment. Maybe that's the best thing for the children. But there are so many components to this, Rosanna. There are young men who are being raised with no responsibility at all, right? They don't know what it is to, if this happens, you're going to be responsible for these kids. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to contribute. You can't just leave it on the woman to do all of these things. Sometimes women end up getting married to these guys, and then during the process of a divorce, they find out just how much of a deadbeat parent they really are. And then you're going through the court system, and the court system is not helpful. So Sarah says, well, what she can say about this topic is that Grace Donalds is a judge on this type of case. Believe me, I have a story that make you wonder why she is there. So a lot of these judges have been called into question in terms of, how much they are helping or not the situation. And I do think, again, this is part of the Caribbean mentality. Like in the States, I find that for the most part, judges take a very no-nonsense approach. They're like, listen, you brought this child into this world. Legally, it is your responsibility. Let's just look at the numbers, look at your salary, look at your bills, look at what this child needs, and you need to start contributing, right? Now, I think legislation is one way in which this issue can be addressed. So our legislators, leaders of the opposition, members of the government, why is it that subsequent governments have never taken a look at this particular topic of child support, deadbeat dads, as they're called, deadbeat mothers, whoever, and really sought to address this issue head on. Why do we continue to allow men and sometimes women to not support their children if they are financially able to do so? Well, we don't want to throw them in jail, because throwing them in jail, they say, is counterproductive, because in jail you can't work. Well, if you're on the outside and you're either refusing to work, or maybe you're not refusing to work, but you are refusing to, admit that you're working at a certain salary, you might need a tough lesson. And jail could be exactly where you need to go. So throw them in jail. Legislation. If the judges had legislation that they had to follow, and it removed more of the discretionary power. So, someone's complaining about Grace Donalds. I don't know what the specifics of that is. But at the end of the day, if the legislation was there that said, this is how this process is going to work, 3 strikes and you're out. So if you have to go to court 3 different times for child support, and by the way, Fridays is child support day. And sometimes I've been in court on Fridays and I see the number of women who have to take off of their jobs, take off of work. Because remember, every single time they have to drag these deadbeat dads back into court, they have no choice, but they have to show up as well. And you have to get there from 10 o'clock in the morning, because you don't know what time your name is going to be called. And you just sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait until they go through the entire list. And whenever they get to you, whenever they call you, if you're represented by a lawyer, those ones get called first, because the judge goes to the lawyer and say, okay, but if you can't afford a lawyer, you could be wasting 3-4 hours out of your Friday trying to track down child support. And this is where the mothers get frustrated. And I've heard some of the stories. They're like, Sandy, why am I even bothering? I need this job. My employer is getting fed out with me having to go to court to chase this deadbeat dad for money. And, I'm doing that at my own peril of potentially losing a good job that I have. And what for? For a judge to just continue to believe his stories and allow him to get away with not paying child support. It's really sad. So some additional comments that came through. This one said, one person said, do not even get me started. That there are a lot of mothers, which would be the grandmothers, who join them in court talking about, my son have to eat too. Meanwhile, some mothers are going without so that their children can eat. And these are some of the sad stories that we are hearing out there on a regular basis. It's just really sad. So a lot of mothers of these boys, that's what I'm calling them, because you can't be a man if you're not supporting their children, are part of the problem as well. So someone said that I heard politicians who were trying to lobby for persons who had claimed their pension to be disclosed, so debtors, landlords, etc., could collect any money owed to them. I've yet to hear any one of them get up and address this disgusting, vile animals who don't take care of their children and causing them to suffer. Some of these politicians are the same quality and class as the deadbeat parents. That was one comment, which I don't doubt. I mean, I've heard of one situation where the mother of the boy who got this girl pregnant, she works at a local bank, and she was snooping into the account, which should be a fireable offense, of the mother to say, well, she's making $3,500 a month. She should be able to take care of all these children on her own. She doesn't need my son. And I thought, wow, I hope that bank fires her with a vengeance, because that is absolutely disgusting. So legislation, folks, is where this issue has to first be tackled. So someone made mention that, you know what, you don't qualify for social services assistance because you're earning a whopping $3,000, which can only pay rent, CUC, water bill, health insurance, because you can eat all three of those. And God forbid your grocery list includes a little juice. They're all gathering to discuss the fact that you need maintenance, but can buy juice with the groceries that you're able to go once a month. Wow. This person also points out that we have laws with no teeth. And I heard that they're going to plan to do a national ID system. You can all, like all sorts of it, such as court fines, medical data, arrest, immigration, where your mama, navel string buried, but I bet they won't think to link a child support order to it. And in other countries, upon your departure, when you scan your passport data and any outstanding liabilities you have, you can be arrested on the spot. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is, these are some good suggestions about what can be done. Suspension of licensing is one thing that they do around the world. This person said, girl, I tried going through the courts for arrears from his pension that we both agreed to in the divorce settlement. So this is someone who got a divorce and got a garnishee order that but the pension company refused to pay out and even hired a lawyer to defend them. It wasn't worth my energy or money for the $3,000 he had in his pension. You would have sworn that the money was for the pension company. Shaking my head. He hadn't been here in more than 2 years, and out of spite refused to sign the release letter, even though he agreed and signed the consent order years before. This is some messed up crap. So again, this is a mother who, she was married to this guy at some time, really thinking that he would have been a good father. Things happen in life, and sometimes you get a divorce and the two of you move on. But in moving on, look at this father now. He has really just dropped the ball in terms of his obligation to his children. Now, let's talk about the other side of this, because of course I know the men are going to come for me this morning and they're going to say, but hold on here, Sandy. We are being abused by mothers who get in these situations, and they're using the money for things like going to the nail salon, getting their hair done, getting their nails done, and they're living their best life while my child isn't getting the money that I'm supposed to be supporting them with. Or better yet, whatever money that this person is making that they could be helping to support my child, they are not using it for that. So this is a little bit of a catch-22 situation. I want you guys to tell me what you think. So Sue says, I'm just catching up on the comments. Giselle, thank you for your comment. She says the system is too reactive. Sue basically agrees that some judges just don't care. And this is, let me say something about judges, Sue, and not just judges, but judges and even some doctors, right? So I've had young ladies come to me who are out there having children, and they're like in child number 3 or 4 between a couple dads, and they have said, listen, I would like to get a vasectomy. So I would like to get my tubes tied. Is it vasectomy for women? Is that the right term? Yeah, I think so. Or is that for men? Tubal ligation for women, sorry. Vasectomy is for men. For a second there, my brain was like, that doesn't sound right. And apparently the system, again, is created where a doctor at the HSA was telling women, and it was more than one physician, that you cannot get your tubes tied. And I'm thinking, well, who the hell are you to tell an adult woman what she can and can't do with her body? And there have been some ridiculous stories over the years. Oh, you're too young to get your tubes tied. Well, listen to me. If I am 25 years old and I've already got 4 or 5 children, who are you to tell me I'm too young? I'm pretty sure 4 or 5 children is enough for the rest of my life. And if I've not been able to properly manage my birth control up until that point, why are you telling me that I'm too young? I wasn't too young to get pregnant. I wasn't too young to have sex. Sorry, I've got some piece of straight hair in my arm. I wasn't too young to get pregnant. I wasn't too young to go out there fornicating and having children. So I'm too young to make a decision. I've just brought lives into this world. So I'm too young to have my tubes tied. Whose business is that exactly of yours? But there have been physicians at the government hospital in particular who have refused, not just given advice, but who've outright refused to do procedures for women, claiming that they were too young, or here's the kicker, that they needed the consent of a man. We do live in the 21st century, right? This isn't the 1800s or the early 1900s even. But they were telling women you need the consent of a man to be able to do this. If you're married, you need the consent of your husband. Hello? Say what? Do I need the consent of my husband to take birth control? If I want to get my tubes tied, that would be my business. I mean, obviously, if you were in a loving relationship, that would probably be a conversation you should have with your husband. But ultimately, your husband cannot tell you that you are not in a position to get your tubes tied. That is a woman's body. And she would control those decisions above anybody else. But these are some of the absolutely ridiculous stories that over the years I have heard. And quite sadly, as a result of that, I know for a fact that women have gone on to have additional children that they didn't plan for and they didn't necessarily want in advance. But hey, once they're here, obviously, you're going to probably try to do your best with them if you can. But that has created a whole slew of social issues in this community, in this country, which has meant that a lot of our children are having to go without. A lot of our children are being put in abusive situations because they were unwanted. Nobody wanted them, folks. And they remain in those abusive, families, and they grew up very, very dysfunctional because they are unwanted. Isn't that sad? And yet a physician who, by the way, when the children come here and when there are issues in relation to their care, you can't go back to that physician and be like, oh, Dr. Ebanks or Dr. Smith, can you assist me in taking care of my child now that the child is here since you refuse to allow me to tie my tubes? They have even told adult women, you need to go get permission from your father to have this done. So over the years, up to a couple years ago, we have spoken to the CEO at the HSA, Miss Lizette Yearwood. She has indicated that that is not an HSA policy, and they should not be doing that. And if they are doing it, they are in contravention with what the HSA policy is. So as physicians, of course, they can advise you the pros and cons of any sort of medical procedure or decision that you're about to undertake, but they cannot tell you that they're going to refuse to do it or that you need anybody else's permission to do it. And so we have given her a list of a physician in particular. Again, Caribbean people, folks, our mentality is not always straight. Refusing to allow a woman to make choices about her body, but you'd rather her bring a child into this world for 18, 21 years that she's responsible for and that she has to take care of in a very bad situation. And you as the physician, are you going to be giving her $1 towards contributing for that child? No. And we're creating an NAU disaster, millions of dollars, food lunch programs, all of these things because people don't get the concept of family planning. Why is it that, out of curiosity, right? Since the churches want to be up in everybody's business, okay? They're so concerned about what adults are doing. Why don't they have, as part of church programs, educational programs about family planning, even for married couples? Why don't they talk about some of those things? Why are they offering free relationship therapy courses and all of these other things, since their main remit is what you're doing in your bedroom? Well, let's take it there. What are all of the teenagers in your church doing in their bedrooms or in the backseat of a car? Is the church concerned about those things? Is the church going to have the hard conversations with those young people in terms of what they're doing for what they shouldn't be doing? And if they're going to do it, because we know they're going to do it, are you teaching them about how to be a little bit smarter? Oh, Darlene, you and I are on the same wavelength this morning, girl. I'm just seeing your concept. I agree. Have the talk and introduce your daughters to family planning, no matter if they're Christian or not. We must teach time to avoid worthless men. Yes. Why not? Why are we not having that conversation? This is what I want to know. It seems to me like, in fact, it is a very logical conversation to be having. So, Darlene, I am with you 120% on this. We have got to be smarter, I think, as women. Men are part of the equation as well. But you know what? Like I said, a man can just drop it and keep it moving. I know some people. Now, here's the irony of this situation. There's a mother out there who's always going around talking about, oh, yes, the gay and lesbian community, blah, blah, blah. And she has a son who has at least 4 or 5 children. And I'm thinking to myself, has that mother, while she's worried about somebody else's life, has she ever sat down with this young man and said, son, you're only 20-something years old. Can you please stop having children? Maybe you need to get your tubes tied. I mean, men don't technically have tubes, but you know what I mean. Maybe he needs to get a vasectomy, because at this rate, if he's in his 20s, and men can go well into 60s and 70s and still be able to have kids, how many kids do you think he's going to have overall? 10, 12, 15, 20 children? He's just spreading them all over the world because his mom is so worried about the domestic partnership bill and the LGBT community. She's not sitting down having a conversation with her child. Some of the children are like the exact same age. Like, they're for different women, but he's out there fornicating with so many different people. But he's having these children all over the place being born at the same time. And you know what is shocking? He never seems to have any shortage of a woman on his arm or in his bed. And to me, I'm thinking, like, that just blows my mind. What's the attraction to a man who's a deadbeat dad? Because this is Cayman, folks. So we all know who and Wawa, right? So you see this young guy out there, he might look nice, he might talk sweet to you, but then you look at him and you're like, you've had 4 or 5 children already? And how old are you? And I don't see you with no job. Don't work half the time, not even 75% of the time, no job, not working. And you're not qualified to do anything. So even if you get a job, it's going to be minimum wage. Try taking care of 1 child on minimum wage, much less 4 or 5 children. And so the cycle of dysfunctionality that we are creating here in this country continues from one generation to the next. And his father was a deadbeat father. And he grew up in an environment where the mother had to live with, taking care and raising her children on her own. So you would kind of think that she would be like, I don't want this for my son. It's not just your daughters that you have to think about. Let me tell you how old this young man is. It's not just your daughters that you're having to consider. What about the young men as well? Why can't we have conversations with them? Why can't we teach them that their behavior is wrong? 28 years old, folks, not even 30, and you've got 4 or 5 children already. we can see where this is headed, right? And again, parents are not sitting down having a conversation with this young man to say, whoa, you need to slow it down. You're having too many children with these girls all over the place. Yes, young ladies, take responsibility for your bodies and your behavior. What is the attraction towards a deadbeat dad? I have no clue. I mean, one of the things I always said personally is I knew I couldn't take the stress of a ready-made family. So I never wanted to have children with a man who already had children, because you know the drama that comes with it. Baby mama drama. And he's having to do this and do that and all the back and forth. I'm like, listen, I want to keep my personal life as simple as possible. So the drama was never something designed for me. So I made very, very conscious decisions. Yeah, you can date people, but when it comes to me having a child with you or getting married to you, there's certain criteria that was on my list, and I wasn't going to be checking those off that quickly. And so when a woman gets into a relationship with a guy, one of the first things you should be considering is, what kind of dad is he? Does he have a good relationship with his children? And I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, if you've got 4 or 5 children, I don't really want you around me, because hello, even if I only have one, how much usefulness are you going to really be to that one child? How much time? There's only 24 hours in a day. How much time can you, between working and everything else that you have going on in life, how much time can you find to spend between all of these children? So Anne says, so true, some men are just looking to breed, to give themselves credit, all while being abusive towards the spouse. That's a whole other situation right there. So Rosanna says that these are the sorts of things that the courts need to be looking at. But Sue says the judges appear to be part of the problem, because the men will lie and claim that they're not working. Giselle, this is an interesting point. Again, she feels that the court and social services advocate for fathers. Now, this to me is shocking, because how can that be? What is happening here? It seems to me that we need to have a tightening up of legislation that is pro, not parents, not mother, not father, pro child. The child's interests should be the paramount interest and concern of the courts. And if that means tweaking legislation that makes that abundantly clear, no one's interest comes before the interest of the child. And when these men go to court with their lies, or even some women go to court with their lies, the courts and the magistrates and the judges need to be more discerning about what's going on. People are good at hiding assets. We hear it all the time when it comes to financial crimes, right? People will take and hide money all over the place. That's not right, folks. Not only is it not right, but we need to find a resolution to ensuring that this does not continue. Giselle is all for naming and shaming, and I had actually thought about this. It's interesting that you should say that, because one of the things that I thought about is maybe CMR. We've had jackasses of the day in relation to the COVID situation. Maybe we need to have a deadbeat dad section. Just like, hey, I'm a proponent for sex offenders registry. We're going to talk about that topic tomorrow. Why not have a registry of deadbeat dads? Because everybody in this community is more concerned about their social, what's the word I'm looking for? Their name, their clout. You know, they're walking around wanting to be a big man on this island. Well, what if the entire island and all the women in this island could see your track record? Which, by the way, all this stuff is a matter of public information for the most part anyway. There are some proceedings in family court that are considered a bit more confidential, like juvenile court. You know, you can't have reporters in on juvenile court hearings and stuff like that. But why don't we start naming and shaming these deadbeat dads? Yep. Mr. Ebanks, I just use that because it's a common Cayman name. I'm not directing it at anyone. Has 3 children, and he's not paying child support for them, and he's in arrears by X amount. Why not? Maybe that'll teach him. And you know what else? It makes information easily accessible. So when Mr. Ebanks decides to go to the bank, oh, he wants a new car, he can find money then. He wants to get a piece of land, he wants to get a loan. The bank goes, hold on, sir. I'm sorry, but you're on this list, this arrears list, this registry of deadbeat dads that says here that you are actually not paying your child support. And so if you owe $800 a month in child support, we're going to use that now as part of your debt ratio. Right? Where you don't qualify for this car. You don't qualify for that piece of land. Maybe that is the way in which we need to start thinking and going. Those are the directions that we need to start going with this. Why not? Good morning, Louie. Giselle is all for naming and shaming. Aliano says, morning, Miss Sandra, good conversation. As a 36-year-old, it has been a major issue pressed into my mind when it comes to deadbeats. The multiple single mothers I have engaged in conversation with seem to ever expect the man cheating out. Wait, conversation was seem to ever, okay. The expectation for sex constantly is a factor too. When one ain't putting out, he seeks other women, but that's no excuse, okay? I feel platform is needed to take these men kicking and screaming and hold them to task for feeding their kids. So Aliano is saying, listen, everybody's out there fornicating. And again, I'm so shocked, given what a so-called Christian society we are. And some of the forerunners of, who are on the front line going on and on and on this weekend about protesting. Somebody said to me about one of them the other day, but does this woman need to be reminded that she's cheating on her husband? And I was like, stop it. Just stop it. I mean, I just can't even with these people anymore, right? So what does the Bible say about picking the whatever out of your eye first? Like, they don't see the sins that they're committing, because in their mind, there's only one sin that is so incredibly important, right? But here we have children that are being impacted because of deadbeat dads, because dads are refusing to pay what is legally obligated. So Aliano says not only are they out there fornicating, even if you're married, some of them are cheating on you because you don't give them sex 24/7. They got a problem with that. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Anne suggests that government should pay the arrears and let the men pay them back. No. Anne, I cannot support that idea, and I'll tell you why. Government can't afford it, first of all. Government is normally in arrears themselves. And you can imagine what would happen if the government started paying that would be the equivalent of NAU. You'd just be giving money away. Because then the government has to do what? Hire lawyers to go out there and fight to get the money back? That will never happen. So I don't think that that's a viable solution. I think the government just needs to put legislation in place where we start putting them in jail. We start stripping them of certain rights if they do not pay their child support. So Sue is in agreement with jail. Let's see here. Darlene says most religions do not encourage family planning. Darlene has a wonderful point. That's one of the reasons why South and Central America is so drenched, is that the word I'm looking for? In poverty is because they are part of the entire Catholic Church system. And the Catholic Church doesn't believe in birth control. They don't believe in abortions for sure. I mean, most churches don't, but they don't even want you taking preventative measures. So when the children come along, they're just like, oh, well, you know why? They want to keep you pregnant, barefoot, uneducated, and dumb, because that is how they have control over people and families for as long as they have. It's time to wise up, folks. And Giselle says it's frustrating and bureaucratic. Darlene says taking a deadbeat parent to court in Cayman is a waste of time. We need to find out why this needs to change. So Anne says, I'm fiscally conservative, invest in all sorts of extracurricular activities for the kids, and they have had to quit because he wouldn't pay support. That's sad, Anne. That's horrible. Anne says that she had the opposite problem. He said, get my tubes tied, and then broke up with me and moved on. Well, listen, this is why you're not doing it for him. You're doing it for yourself. And if you already have, and I don't know anything about Anne and her situation, but if you already have 2 or 3 children with a deadbeat father, really and truly, even if you meet Mr. Wonderful afterwards, it's probably not in your best interest to have any more kids. This is a numbers game. Are you going to be able to afford them? And then when Mr. Wonderful turns into Mr. Number 1 a-hole, and he doesn't want to pay child support, it's like a vicious cycle. You know, there's nothing wrong with family planning. And I think after a certain amount of kids, you have to be realistic about what you can afford and what you can do. And I see absolutely nothing wrong. Listen, for me, 2 kids is the perfect number. I don't think many of us can afford more than 2 kids. And I don't think many of us need more than 2 kids. I've only got 1, and I'm going to live with the 1 and make it do. Why we feel the need to overprocreate the earth, which is overpopulated anyway, I have no idea. I mean, China created their own sets of issues by having a 1-child policy, but I mean, I think a 2-child policy could do well for most of the Caribbean region. So Jennifer says that most of these men are growing up without fathers, and it continues the cycle. The boys need to be educated about sex just as the girls. I agree with you 100%. And I also know that the reality is, Jennifer, that unfortunately we live in communities where boys are given no responsibility whatsoever. I've seen it even within my own families where the girls like, okay, you've got to learn how to cook and clean. Academically, you need to be on the ball. Folks, these are 2-parent households, right? I'm talking about. So this is like the best of what we can get. And the daughter has all of the pressures of knowing how to do all of these things. And what do the young men do? Oh, go fishing. It's like, okay, why are you not teaching this young man how to cook as well? What's wrong with him learning how to cook? What's wrong with him having cleaning responsibilities on the weekends, just like the child does? Okay, she has to get up on Saturdays, clean. She's got to do dishes afterwards. Make the boy do those things as well. So I think as parents, a lot of us have a different standard by which we operate when it comes to our children. And we clearly differentiate between the boys and the girls. And the boys, we tend to give them no responsibility whatsoever. They can just roll out of bed, you know, barely get dressed, barely get ready in the morning. And we're okay with that as parents. So we set the bar so incredibly low for our children, or male children in particular, the young men, that I am not surprised, in fact, that they are so incredibly irresponsible, even when it comes to parenting and that sort of thing. I'm not surprised at all. So I agree 100% with you, Jennifer. Teach them not just about sex and sex education and family planning, but teach them all of it. The same skills, home economics, boys, you can do it too. Because you don't necessarily need a woman. You can get up and cook your own meal. You can be independent. Karen says it's all about the tithing and to keep the church numbers up. Oh, I bet you the day the church not getting their money, we're going to start hearing something. And Anne, I agree. This whole thing about mama's boys needs to stop. Teaching them to be responsible. Absolutely, Karen. Vanessa says they're waste men. That's what we call them. Evelyn says, what woman wants a man who does not support their kids? Well, Evelyn, you would be surprised that some women are so incredibly selfish that when they get in a relationship with a man, they know he's not supporting his existing children and they don't care. And not only do they not care, but I have actually seen situations and heard of parents who say that the step parent is actually encouraging the father or the mother to have no contact with their biological children and to not support them because now they want whatever salary or support is coming in all for themselves and whatever children they may have with that individual. Folks, come on now. If you find a man and he already has children, you should never stop him from seeing his children, from supporting his children, and from being the best possible father that he could be to those kids. And if you're like me, you just didn't want the headache because you can see it coming a mile down the street of having baby mama drama, then you simply find someone with no children. Now, I know it's hard, ladies, because we do live in the Caribbean. So it is very hard to find a man that does not already have children. But I agree, Karen, if a man is even willing to do that for another woman, it says a lot about him. Absolutely. So poor Anne, I'm sorry, Anne, for your situation. Anne says, I thought we had potential. He found me with a kid, a job, a car, and good credit. We married and had 5 children together, but mama led that life. And he was abusive, which led me into downfall. I'm very sorry to hear that. Wow. So now, Anne, you have 6 children. Well, all I can tell you is with 6 children, I don't see the issue with you getting your tubes tied because you'll never be fooled by another man, at least not in terms of having any more kids. And maybe at this point, your only hope is to try to focus on those children. This is really, really sad. And again, you know, sometimes we don't see it. We don't see it coming. But normally, in terms of domestic abuse and violence, the signs are there. We're just so clouded by wanting to be with someone that we don't want to acknowledge and accept the signs that are staring at us. The signs are normally there that we're dealing with abusive men, narcissistic men, controlling men, and so on. So I don't know how long you're with this man for, so I'm very sorry to hear that. And Giselle, 100%. Mothers need to hold their boy children to a higher standard. To any standard would be nice, but definitely a lot higher than what is being done presently. Hi, Dimitri. Thank you for tuning in. Good morning. Giselle says naming and shaming can be both deadbeat moms and dads. Okay. Anne says, yes, money is the respect shown. Get money for trips, but not a payment. Rosanna says, I dislike it when I see parents pin their own child on grandparents just to be all over the place and do what they want. Again, grandparents, you're not teaching your kids any responsibility when you allow them to do that. Leslie says, naming and shaming people for this topic is going to get difficult. There are many situations where there are mitigating circumstances, and sometimes one side of the story is going to be very biased, and that is true. But we go back to the point of legislation. And Leslie also shares that legislation should be in place to help with enforcement of the child support order. And I know many women who do not even get an order because they want to be seen as a good baby mama. Unbelievable. Use the current system, pressure it, and legislators will have to make changes when these kinds of cases keep plugging the system. Well, Leslie, these types of cases have been plugging the system for a very long time. And unfortunately, the legislators have not done anything. They're too obsessed about other stuff sometimes that isn't here nor there. So the amount of time that they spent over the last 5 years talking about the domestic partnership bill, gay marriages, all the money, and only God knows how much money we're talking about that has been used to fight that legal battle, could have been used to fix this problem that's impacting people and mothers in this community and fathers in this community, and most importantly, the children in this community every single day. Latoya says she says plan for 2. The smart thing to do, I have 2 and I don't need any more. Janika is wondering if she can borrow some of your 6 children. If you can lend her 2 of your children. Folks, these are some very serious conversations, but that comment from Danica certainly made me chuckle. Good folks. All I can tell you is listen, we have a lot of social issues that are plaguing us. The domestic partnership bill is the one issue we continue to protest about. And I dare say, after this week, you will have to agree with me that we have way more than that issue that we need to be concerned about. And I'm just going to show you the lineup for this week of what else we have. So give me 1 second here. So tomorrow's show is going to be about child abuse, because you guys know that's one of the bigger issues that is facing us here in the Cayman Islands that we live in denial about on a regular basis. And sometimes I feel like the lone voice in the wilderness on this topic, but I refuse to give up on this because I know this is an issue. And the countless women and children that have been impacted as abuse victims in this community who come to me on a regular basis, it continues to be a huge problem. So deadbeat dads, we touched on that today. Child abuse and sex offenders, let's talk about that tomorrow. Wednesday is going to be Cayman's dismal educational system. It's coming, folks. Mental health on Thursday, and Friday, Cayman's environment. These are 5 topics out of many, many more, I'm sure, that are worth protesting about. Where is the protest, folks? Where are our legislators addressing these issues? So just a notation here about thunderstorm. Laura, as a result, all national attractions are closed due to the inclement weather. So if you were going to go to any of the national attractions that fall under the attraction board, Pedro St. James, Queen Elizabeth Park, those will be closed today. Okay, so those historic sites, they plan on reopening hopefully tomorrow if this weather passes and all goes well. So again, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, you're going to be getting some weather from this. So by all means, please be safe. Wanted to remind you guys that this storm is very serious. It's already killed people in both Haiti and DR. And of course, Jamaica is being drenched with some weather as a result of this as well. All right, so throughout the day, we'll keep you guys updated if anything breaking happens in terms of the storm. And Danica is here for it, so I suspect that she will be if she hasn't already, posting a regional update on what's going on. We've got the video that's up, folks. We're going to incorporate that into a story here shortly. We've got the fire that was happening at 3 o'clock in the morning here in Cayman as well, the vehicular fire. So all of those stories will go up here shortly. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Jamaica continues to see an increase in their COVID cases. It's now over 1,500 with 622 plus active cases and several people recovering. And I think the total death toll is now about, oh gosh, I think they have at least 16 people that have died. And I did read something over the weekend that a few more are in critical care as a result of COVID. And of course, they've been out and about. They've got general elections coming up here on September the 3rd. So a lot of people are out doing the elections and the campaigning and so forth. So the crowds are there to probably only spread this more. So folks, be very, very cautious. Very, very cautious, okay? I'm just trying to see where we're at with COVID. Obviously, here in the Cayman Islands, we had 2 positives last week, which broke our 37-day record. Tomorrow, there'll be a press conference. Finally, we've been waiting on one. There will be a press conference at, we don't have an exact time yet, but we're thinking in the afternoon around 2 o'clock or so. The premier will be having a press conference, so we'll see what's on the agenda there. Interesting story over the weekend with the governor being sort of coming under some scrutiny for a gift that he presented to his leaving office manager. I think it's a bit of much ado about nothing. I think right now people are up in their feelings about the governor, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that he has said in conjunction with the FCO that they will be pushing through this domestic partnership bill, whether the Cayman Islands wants it or not. And so a governor that was once very, very popular, all of a sudden is fallen out of a little bit of favor with some people. So American Airlines is going to be dropping flights to 15 cities in October. I'm guessing this is just because of the economic downturn. So it says here, federal requirement to serve those communities end. So, wow. They're gonna be dropping those. There's some concerns about school reopenings around the world. So do keep those in mind. Yeah. Okay. All right, folks, that's it for us. Stay tuned. We will bring you breaking news and updates throughout the day on our platform when it happens, as we usually do. Please stay safe. And you guys know how to reach us. Janika says 13 or 14 dead in Jamaica, I think. Okay. So Anne, thank you so much for tuning in. She says she's doing fine. Thank you so much, Anne, for being a wonderful mother. Her kids are, some of them are adults, so that's good. She's got an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, 17, 19, and 22. So hopefully the 22 and 19-year-old and 17-year-old, I'm hoping that they're off to university. And listen, I don't know if they're all girls. She said 2 in university and 2 in high school. You are blessed, my dear. And yes, listen, talk to them about these deadbeat men. Even if you end up marrying them, they can still be deadbeat at some time, folks. So yeah, be smart, women. That's all I can tell you. Try to be smarter with the decisions that we're making. And as mothers, we owe it to our sons to raise better sons who are going to stand by their obligations should they have children. And Sue says, thank God my daughters are making their sons help around the house and to cook and respect girls a lot too, as to many wicked narcissist men out there, and there's tons of those. So, and don't worry about it. Being married isn't always what it's cracked up to be for a lot of people anyway. There are a lot of people who are married and miserable. I would listen. If you're going to be married and miserable, give me single and happy any day. So married isn't all it's cracked up to be either. Leslie, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm glad that you enjoyed the program today. Folks, I'll see you back here tomorrow at 7:15 a.m. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Big shout out to Miracle Brokers. Big shout out to Popeyes. Big shout out to Burger King and Flo, who has done their superhero giveaway. And I understand Flo is actually doing another promotion, which we are super excited to hear a little bit more about. So stay tuned, folks. You've been listening to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.